there was a lot.
A lot going on.
A lot going on. Yeah.
Yeah.
So luckily, all of the things have gone well, and
Thanks be to
small
God. Yeah,
thanks
it's
to
great.
the medical system. On the basis that you can't kill a bad thing, so far so good. So here we are in the blink of an eye in nearly December.
Yes.
With having faced a busy year.
Busy year. It's hard to imagine just how you would have felt facing open heart surgery at the start of the year. I suspect it made a lot of other leadership worries look small by comparison. What was going through your mind in the run up to it?
Yes, well, I mean, like all the obvious things, as they say, like a cobbler never looks after their own shoes. Believe it or not, I had no will, so that was the first thing that I had to sort out. And but I was, upbeat, albeit realistic. I had two very significant problems wrong with my heart, and so I was realistic that the outcome might not have been what I'd hoped for. But I had a short period of time. I did it 2 weeks from when the surgeon said, we met the surgeon on the Friday, myself and my husband, and he said, Adelia, I'd like you in on Monday. So I said, absolutely, I don't have time for open heart surgery on Monday. Dr. Redmond was my first reaction, and I have a business to run. I'm way too busy for this. So with a bit of persuasion, he let me come back to the office, and I had to tell them all here there's going to be a big change, because I was carrying a huge workload, and I do a lot of the management, and I just feel so blessed with the team we have here, because obviously I also work with my husband. We have an extraordinary team here, and everyone, to a woman, and sort of had a hands to the pump attitude. They came out with flying colours, and I had to leave, and I had to do what had to be done to get my health right. So off I went and left them all here after 2 weeks of frantically reallocating files and work, and and so many. The hand said, "Can I do this? Can I do that?" I felt either say things that way.
Very good, very good. And when it got to it, then when you were about to go through it, worrying moments indeed. I can imagine when you're there trying to see, will I make it through this? What did that feel like?
Well, as some people are watching might know, I have an interest in horses, and even though I don't bet very much, I kind of felt it was an each way bet. I suppose I'm lucky enough to have a good faith, and I also am unlucky or lucky enough to have a number of family members already gone before me. So I felt that either way, either I get to see them or I get to stay here for another while. So so luckily I woke up.
So you open negotiations.
Exactly. Yeah.
So you're obviously a good negotiator. Then you struck a good deal.
I think so. So far, anyway. I'll probably be run over by a bus next week, but anyway.
Oh, no, hopefully not. And when you came out of the surgery, then obviously quite a low moment. Presumably, you couldn't do very much. How did you build yourself back up in coming out?
It's a combination of euphoria and sort of where will I go from here. When you're in ICU, you're not really aware of what's going on. You're so much happy juice that it really doesn't strike you. But they very kindly, after 2 days there, bundled me back to a room of my own, and you're off this trolley, and there's bits hanging out of every part of you. It's really awful, the whole thing. And then this nice lady came in. They leave you there, and the nice lady came in with a tea and toast. So I look at the tea and toast at the side of the bed and think to myself, gosh, I'd love that. And then I realize I can't sit up. And then I realized even if I did sit up, I don't have the strength to lift the cup. So I'm thinking to myself, God, Susanna, that great big plan you had for running 5K and whatever, you've a mountain to climb. But you do that, like you've no choice. So step by step.
Step by step.
Yeah, on the road. And
you've it's been what is it now? About 6 months since you
yeah.
And what have you achieved since then?
Well, I'm running on a treadmill. Back at work. Yeah, running a treadmill. I'm lucky enough to have a brilliant cardiac physio, and for the first time in a long time, I'm the best in the class. So it is a cardiac physio class, but I'll take it. Where it's coming from. But yeah, thankfully, I really haven't looked back, and I'm so grateful for that. But I have changed a few things here. Changed for me for various reasons. So things are a little bit different.
Very good, very good. And those as you went through that and you were achieving little milestones along the way, how did you mark those? How did that feel?
Oh, well, it's just, the smallest of things, like, and actually only recently my phone was on my lap on the bed. It slipped off the bed and fell onto the floor. And to be able to swing around, pull up the phone, sit up again, and I said to my husband, I couldn't, that would have taken to run to one side, that would have taken, the strength involved. You don't realize how much your body has to do those movements.
Yeah.
So yes, I've been very lucky that that's all gone well.
Very good. And I hear you've taken on some new challenges of terrorizing the golfers of Kildare.
Yeah. So I decided, you really do get a feeling. I mean, it's so cliched in some ways, but you really do see the sun differently. You see the day differently. Everything, it looks just different. So there's a few things that I've taken up since that I haven't done before. One is sea swimming, and I'm one of those really annoying people in the dry ropes. And when I am allowed to travel, obviously I'll get back to it in December for the other dip in the ICC. But the other was golf. I'm just not so sure that that's quite for me. But we'll keep at it. I did manage to belt the roof of the local driving range with a ball recently, before this lockdown. So that's, we'll just have to see.
See, it takes time, all right. It's a mental game. Yeah. Very good. And has it changed your perspective on work and the way you're going to live the rest of your life as a result of being through that? Is that one of those experiences?
Yeah, entirely. I mean, all of the things that you learn about that you should do. I should take more time off, and I should do. Even when the children are small, you're torn in so many directions as a working mom, and you're trying to fill so many expectations. And I always planned I'd take a Friday off and I'd try and do some of those other things which lead to less pressure. But I never managed to do that. And I do that. I haven't come near here since I came back to work.
Right.
So yeah. So
and is that something, as you say, you would have done before? What would have held you back from doing it before that has changed now that you've been able to adapt? Besides making your mind up.
I've been braver about delegating. I know, again, a lot of things that I have learned from the Timoney course, and in theory, I learned it, but I really didn't put it into practice. And when I had no choice, it was taken out of my hands. I just simply had to delegate, and it's been such an amazing lesson for me. And I hopefully others could learn from that too, because to see how everyone here has really grasped that nettle and has said, yeah, well, I'll try this and I'll try that. And, you know, staff that you might not have thought would be good at marketing, have it, you know, out of the blue. I had one staff member come to me and say, look, with this pandemic, why don't we try some radio, or why don't we try some, you know, various different things. And so I never would have, she would never have done that, except that I had pulled back a bit. And you know, like that across the board, people just have taken huge initiatives. So
you've discovered talent you didn't realize was there in
had
the
I
team.
not been sick.
Fantastic. Yeah, well, I had a similar experience earlier this year with getting the flu on the first module of our ALP, and for the first time I had to miss a module in all our years in Timoney, thinking it was a real crisis. But sure, they had a fantastic module without me. And the question at the end of it was like, do you really need to be at the future ones? You know, it's great when you can have that. You're not indispensable, which often is in our minds more than anything else. But
yeah, absolutely.
Well, how with the pandemic has obviously hit in the middle of all this too, and I imagine the legal world isn't the best suited for remote working with the amount of paper that you guys generate. So how have you experienced that as a leader in the pandemic?
Well, again, the pandemic has revolutionized the way we work, and it has been much better experience than we could have, you know, ever hoped for. Obviously, you know, the work is down, it's not what it was, but that dismal feeling in the beginning of April, thinking, oh my goodness, you know, how are we ever going to adapt to this? Has, you know, thanks to staff and good computer company, and you know, has worked really, really well.
Great.
Better than you would have thought.
Excellent. And it's that's, I suppose, a combination as well with the delegation. People are taking more responsibility, having to take more responsibility.
Yeah, absolutely.
Very good. If you were a business owner who's kind of coming up to their 5th year in business as the principal, because you're now 20 years, I think you're celebrating this year.
Yeah.
What would you say to them about sharing responsibility and delegating? Would it, from what you've learned now?
Yeah, I wish it had open heart surgery 15 years ago. Well, I know now I'm being facetious, but yeah, like I've learned, of course I read the books and of course I listened to the lectures, but I didn't trust myself or others. And now I've really learned from that. And I've really learned that you have to, you know, trust others and, you know, respect input. And I think that comes back in spades then, in terms of positivity and, you know, quality of work.
Very good. Yeah. And it's kind of moving from a would it have been more of a controlled environment, so to speak, before?
Brian, are you saying I'm a control freak?
No, I'm just kind of, you know.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, well, I suppose what we've all learned from this as well is that you can work more flexibly, remotely. I think a combination of both is probably the optimum. For a number of reasons, both, you know, personal and professional. But also I kind of feel I've got to know my various staff, their family, their kitchen, their dogs, all of which, you know, I never knew before all of this.
Right.
I think it has, you know, added value to the overall team spirit, and that's been great.
the humanity of it all, rather than just efficiently getting things done. There's
Yeah, I think so.
very good, fantastic. And so, how are you finding the fifth day of the week now? Is it working out?
It's great. I always think I'll get a load of things done, but I just seem to do everything more slowly.
Yeah.
But it's great, and it takes the pressure off. And I do sort of mundane things like shopping and dry cleaners, as well as small.
Very good.
It's
Just when you were saying about it, you wished you had done it maybe earlier in your career, and I just wonder with that does it take adversity or suffering like this for us to make these changes? Do we need the shock? Because for so many, it's we say family is a priority, or time with family and friends and fulfilling our purpose. But yet, when you look at the weekly schedule of the average leader, certainly, and many of us in working, and it gets dominated with lesser priorities. So does it need this adversity, suffering?
I think it does, and I suppose that's when we chatted about having this day originally, I realized that I did have to have these shifts to my system. I hope other people wouldn't have to have that maybe they could learn from my mistakes, and that they could realize that you don't have to go through some awful life-changing experience to do what the books already say you should do, if I'd only just listened in the first place. But anyway, it's not too late. So
no, there's plenty more in the tank.
Exactly.
Well, besides that, obviously you've also taken a step forward. Over the past 18 months, you've acquired or merged with some other practices. But even now, during COVID and with all that's going on, you took on a third practice. So you like to take on challenges, clearly.
Yeah, absolutely.
Tell us why you made that move.
Well, that was the timing of the other party, and it was what they required. So I suppose you hear a lot about pivoting at the moment, and and initially when it was brought up, I was like, oh, goodness, we can't do this as well as everything else. And then we decided, no, let's go for it. We know how to do this. We've done it before. We have economies of scale and efficiencies, and it was absolutely seamless, I have to say. And again, the staff were incredible. That some of them had to work in another office during the transition period, and they were very flexible about that. So it made everything very smooth. So that was good.
Fantastic. And where did you get the idea initially to start acquiring and merging with other?
Well, that was actually, I try to recall the particular lecture, but it was definitely when I was doing the ALP in 2015, and it was some sort of a case study in relation to a food company, and they were buying complementary elements to the food company. Maybe it was packaging or whatever, but it was very much product based as opposed to service based. But I did have a light bulb moment one day in the Cake Club and wondered, would that move easily with the profession, particularly the legal profession? And it does. It works. And okay, there are difficulties, but then the benefits far outweigh the teething problems.
Fantastic. Yeah. Oh, that's great. Applying something in a totally different sector to your own, which is great. And what have you learned about that experience so far? The highs of it, let's say, the things that have gone well, and on the other hand, the things that maybe have been quite challenging.
Yeah, well, the highs of it is you get to deal with a different client base, and they're not used to you, and you're not used to them, and you have to get to know each other and see whether you're all a fit, and usually that works, but not always. There are some that don't go along with it. But in general, we were amazed at how seamless, even in geographic areas, that if you can show that you can do the work well and efficiently, and you communicate with the person involved, then and they usually don't have a huge difficulty continuing to do their work through your offices. I
Right.
suppose the difficulties sometimes are different methods of doing things. Us lawyers wouldn't be famous for being too flexible, and sometimes
Oh,
it takes a little bit of carrot and stick to make to show the different ways of doing things um, can be achieved. But the economies of scale in terms of organization are huge, and so it's it works.
a positive move, yeah. And how are you finding pulling together the whole team, given the difficulty in actually uniting everybody at the moment with COVID and creating a
Yeah,
culture with the new team?
yeah. Well, I think we don't have difficulty with that because the I think Andrew and I both work very hard, and I think we're fair enough to work. I mean, maybe they'll all say afterwards, no, you're impossible to work for. But I think the cooperation between everyone, and particularly with COVID, everyone's been really conscious of, well, so and so has a mom living with them and she isn't well, or so. There's been this lovely empathy that,
Yeah.
and somebody finds, say, working Zoom more difficult than others. Somebody's um, in fact, against my own husband, I have to say, when we do have the odd Zoom, I do use the term more calling Orson, which people of a certain age group might understand. Maybe you're too young, more Ronan, but sometimes there's, difficulties with logging on and pairing to Wi-Fi and all these things.
Yeah.
But what I found is that everyone has different aptitude for that, but everyone is happy to help.
Yeah.
And and that. So
A lot more patience.
yes, yeah.
Very good, very good. Well, that's great, and I know you mentioned the one of the benefits you got there from the Advanced Leadership Program which you did back in 2015, which reminds me, it must be time now for a refresher of some sort. But besides the idea of expanding and growing your business, what else did that experience give you that helped you in your role as a leader?
Well, confidence really. Like my friend that recommended the course to me, he kind of said you're a leader or whatever, and I didn't. I was just kind of going to work and doing what I do and helping manage the practice. So I didn't really have a label for what I did every day. But it was doing the course then made me realize, well, actually, maybe that is what I do. And also meeting other people in the same position as you with the same sort of problems. It doesn't matter whether you're selling a legal service or you're selling a widget, it's the same issues. You have to make a profit. You can't make a mess of things. You have to look after your staff. You have to pay your rates and your rent. So that's what I found, and then there's a nice network of people afterwards that you can connect with, and I have done that. I've used it a lot. A couple of people where I'm able to just
Continuous learning from peers. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And is that kind of ongoing learning something that is important for you and for your team, for your staff? Is it a feature of your culture?
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. We've loads to be learning. Unfortunately, we also have to do a huge amount of CPD, which is sometimes not as fun as other types of learning. But the combination of the two is fine.
And have you thought of what your next big learning journey will involve?
Oh, I have great plans for, I hope, maybe ESA, but over in Barcelona they do an advanced leadership management program. But with, I suppose, COVID and health, I don't think anyone would insure me to fly anywhere at the moment. So I think I just have to hold on for maybe another year and do it then.
Another year, sure, yeah. Very good, very good. Well, it's well worth considering. All right, it's a great program. Well, we've looked at a couple of different interesting aspects here in personal and professional life, and how you've faced adversity, and I suppose how you've changed yourself and your leadership style and your way of working, your working week. But it's not the first time you faced adversity at a very personal level. You had a very painful tragedy for your family a number of years ago, and I know this is quite personal, so stop me if I'm going down.
No, that's okay.
But I can't imagine really how hard it must have been to live through it and come out stronger as indeed you have. But can you share with us maybe a little bit about how you managed to rise above your own pain in that scenario and take a very positive step forward?
Yeah, well, again, I don't like to in any way, blow any of our trumpets out of the misery. As you know, where my darling sister was murdered in 2008, and overnight, myself and my brother became guardians of her daughter, and also then we found ourselves in this sort of legal labyrinth in relation to assets and property, and we had to secure her daughter's future. Obviously, we were, completely grief-stricken, and I felt a huge sense of responsibility that, as the lawyer in the family, I had to try to do something positive. I couldn't make it right, but so myself and my brother set about a legal challenge to gain the assets for her daughter. Unfortunately, the law in Ireland at the moment doesn't quite support a full release of assets in a situation like that, but we did manage to secure, with a precedent case, a property for her daughter. And I mean, I don't feel any sense of, I think if Celine was here, she'd say, well, that's what you should have done. I think she'd be giving me any big pat on the back. It was, it was what we had to do, and it was the right thing to do. But one of the positives that has come out of all of that misery is that our case has set a precedent, both in Ireland and in other common law countries. We still trying very hard to get the legislation amended here so that no one else would have to actually go to court to do what we had to do, and we're not quite there yet, but watch this space.
Well done. Yeah, well, certainly it's impressive to see how you've taken that on and how far it's advanced already. But showed remarkable resilience on your part, and so congratulations, well done on that. Can't have been easy.
Right. No.
I'm sure it's been an inspiration too for Andrew and your family too. It's really been quite impressive. So well done.
So I'm lucky to have a great family, and I think I hope that they will, they'll value, what they've learned from Andrew and I. So so far so good. Don't think anyone's going too far off piece so far. So hopefully they'll keep it up.
Well done. Well, I have a couple of questions coming through here. No, Carl Daly has asked one going back to the changes that you've made as a result of what you've been through, and wondering what are you going to do to avoid drifting back to the former life you had, and succumbing to the pressure to do that. So he'd love to hear your thoughts on how you're going to achieve that.
Yeah, well, thank you, Carl. I mean, it's a really brilliant question, and I am my own worst enemy, and I absolutely have to sometimes check myself and say, no matter what, if the Pope himself reigns on Friday, it does not matter. But it really does. It does take, for someone who's, obviously I very much enjoy my work, and energetic. So I just usually have to put energy into something else. So if that means jumping into the Irish Sea, walking over the Wicklow Mountains, then that distracts me for long enough.
Very
So
good. Very good. You've clearly decided it's going to remain. It's going to continue.
Yeah.
Very good. Well done. And there's a comment here from Mitch Viter, who's listening in from France, I think, that you're an inspiration, Susanna. Faced with the adversity you went through, you definitely pulled it all out of your heart and mind. A true inspiration. So there you go. I think echo those words. Very good. And that's I've kind of one last question really to put to you, Susanna, and this comes from your beloved husband. He'd like to know what's for dinner.
Yeah.
So I think McDonald's may be the correct answer, is it?
Yeah. Well, the other answer to that question, as he often knows, is your dinner is in the dog. So hopefully that won't be the case just yet.
Very good. Very good. Excellent. Well, look, I'd like to thank you, Susanna, for joining us this afternoon and being so frank and generous in sharing your experiences.
Thank you, Ron.
It's been a delight to have you on. And well, this conversation we've had, as indeed with future webinars, we're now making available in podcast format on the Timoney Leaders Series podcast channel, which you can find on Apple, Spotify, and most podcast channels that you might listen to them on. So if you'd like to re-listen to it or to share it with others, please do and subscribe. Apparently, I read somewhere recently that podcast listening has doubled during COVID. Enormous amount of people are listening to them now, so we're delighted to be able to share it that way as well. Our next webinar will be in 2 weeks' time, when we'll be joined by Martin and Ryan Tierney to discuss the practical side of leading a continuous improvement approach in both new and existing business that they lead. And then next Wednesday, we have our leadership masterclass on rebooting your entrepreneurial mindset with the essay professor Christoph Zott. And we still have some places available for this 2-hour interactive online workshop on Wednesday morning next. So you can get in touch if you would like to attend. And finally, just to thank Claire and Alison here in Timoney for preparing and producing this webinar and podcast. And to wish you all a good evening and take